Okay, this is a PowerPoint supporting the external influences um, achievement standard, um, AS 90844. Okay, today's ones we're looking at societal expectations and ethical influences and how these have um, an influence on businesses and their decisions. So we're going to first and foremost understand what our current social influence is, and hopefully go on to explain how social influences and also ethics affect a business's decision making process. So added to that, for what are societal factors? Societal factors very simply are fashions and trends that are occurring out in society. And obviously these come from a number of different sources, a number of different variables. Um, and they very much dictate what businesses need to do to adapt to these fashions and trends. A very common one in the minute is the awareness of environmental factors and just being awareness of social issues that are occurring out in society amongst the population. Added to that, there's been a change in attitudes, which would also reflect societal factors, a change in attitudes to a number of range of issues um, from healthy living uh, to corporate transparency, um, to a number of different approaches in business. And these would all come down to what we refer to as societal factors. Now, key social influences. One of the first ones, society is all about people. So obviously, the study of the populations. Demographics is a key one. So demographic, when referring to demographics, is the study of a country's population, not necessarily the number of people, but how uh, the population is constructed. So the number of people between certain ages, the number of people from certain races, the number of males, the number of females, the number of people who are single, who are married, divorced, etc., etc., etc. Okay, all of these studies are very instrumental in understanding how society changes and the sort of fashions and trends that may be developing from these type of demographic situations. So, for example, um, if we've got a larger proportion of women to men, you could say that the trend may be a lot more towards fashions and trends um, which are female in origin, effectively. Um, so these demographic effects have a knock-on effect to the social influences, which obviously, of course, businesses have to adapt to. Now, obvious as well, from a very simple point of view, from populations, they grow and they get smaller. So, an increase in demand, an increase in available employees is a knock-on effect and an influence on businesses as populations increase. Secondly, conversely, you're also going to find with a decrease in populations the opposite occurring. So, a decrease in the demand, the size of the market is going to shrink, and also the labour pool is going to shrink, which possibly drive up the cost of wages. A very common one at the minute and topical one at the minute is population of New Zealand and um, other economies and other countries. The population is getting older, and this is quite an alarming situation for a lot of countries because what we're finding is that in the future there will be less people working and less people supporting and driving the economy, and more people reliant on those sort of welfare benefits and pensions and transfer payments, um, which is a bit of an issue because we've not got the people fueling the economy who are working there. So all of these changes in demographics create changes in a business's market and the way in which they view their objectives and the way in which they do their day-to-day operations. Okay, also lifestyles have changes. So this also links into obviously our fashions and trends, but people, as a common one, people are very conscious of what they eat these days. People are notably eating healthier. There's been a big push towards anti-fat products. There's been a massive push, a massive recent push towards sugar, or cutting down the amount of sugar in products. Um, so these are things which businesses need to be aware of. Obviously, businesses that are producing food, this is going to be very significant, okay? Things such as the environmental effects, the greenhouse effect, climate change has made people very aware of this, and people on the whole want to do the right thing. So therefore, recycling the rubbish is a new way in which people choose to live their life and their lifestyle, and this reflects their lifestyle. Very often businesses look to attract customers by operating morally and very simply, ethically, and very simply, this is describing businesses to be doing the right thing in the eyes of their customers, but not just their customers or stakeholders. Okay, where this change in lifestyle comes from: media, education, TV, cinema. And we've also got increased free time as well, which also gives us more opportunity and outlet to explore different ways of living and different ways to address our lifestyle. A very common one also as well, and this is very much reflected in education, is that we have now a social enterprise culture. Enterprise as a facet and part of our life has been very much developing. Gone are the days whereby people are seen to go through life to fit the model of model of one job, stay in that job for the rest of their life. No, people change all the time in terms of the jobs that they do, and added to that, a more significant one, people are now more aware of being in control of their own destiny and making their own decisions, and also as well becoming the owners of those organizations rather than just the employees rather. Okay, so it gives us a whole idea for individuals and groups to take the initiative. Okay, we have the technology out there, we have the know-how out there to develop these activities, and these can be for money-making purposes, and also for the good of society, the good of community, the local iwi. So the use of skills of innovation and risk-taking, this is all something which is now developed and learned. And to go back to Maori business terms, this does reflect the term whakawhiti whakaaru. Okay, so all these social influences, how do businesses respond to them? Well, first and foremost, the business managers, this is their job to be able to be aware of these changes and these influences, and utilize their resources in a way which means that there's a positive response to the social influences. Okay, so the type of things that they could be looking at are changing their products, changing their marketing strategies, looking at a different target market. So for example, an aging population, well, all of a sudden the argument could be that there might be some justification in changing to a target market that reflects that aging dynamic. Adjusting your production process, factory locations, human resources procedures, a lot more emphasis on lean production, because we know we do not waste our resources, the effects on the societal influence on caring for the environment. So really there's a lot of different responses, and this is just very brief examples of how businesses do react to these changing social influences. Now, ethics, as we briefly mentioned before, these really are a moral code by which decisions are guided. The difficulty with ethics is that they are very subjective, and that means they are very much down to people's individual perception and beliefs. So although we say it's a moral code by which decisions are guided, this code is very much agreed on by a group of individuals that hopefully would share the same approach in their understanding of what ethics are and what they believe are the right things to do. Okay. Ethics aren't always backed up by legal acceptance, and in a way, ethics need to be apart from the law, because we can't have the law enforcing people's subjective opinions. I think that would take away from the power of morals and ethics if we had to have it backed in law. So businesses really need to be seen to be doing that correct thing, but not just going beyond just obeying the law. Okay, which is the key bit that we need to understand. They need for you to be able to show yourself as an ethical business, an upstanding moral business. You need to be going beyond just that obligatory legal compliance, and it needs to be seen to be voluntary. The downside, obviously, to this is these type of approach very often does raise costs. From a community point of view, as communities, we do expect businesses to operate in a certain way. We expect them to be fair. We expect them to be not be polluting the environment, and we expect them to be to act as we ourselves act. So in a way, businesses may have their own guideline, but that guideline has got to fit in with what our local communities are also believing. Okay, so ethical. So the type of common ethical behaviours that are occurring at the minute are very much the push for the living wage, not just minimum wage, but above that. Okay, fair prices to suppliers, not exploiting those suppliers who possibly might be really vying for that big order. Buying from ethical suppliers, buying from suppliers that you know are operating ethical practices. They're not employing children, they're not paying below the minimum wage. Providing appropriate working conditions that employees and stakeholders are safe working in this environment, and an overall understanding of transparency. So therefore, stakeholders, interested people in the business can very easily see how this business is operating, the practices are, and that's transparency across all departments, across the finance, production, marketing, sales, etc., etc. So these are some of the things that we need to just be familiar with and understand when we're thinking about the external influences that are put on businesses by societal expectations and the linking with ethics. Thank you very much.